Sure appears that way. All his rabbis are gone. John Dorsey's gone. His head coaches are gone. His offensive coordinator's gone. It's new everybody, and it's people that don't have a loyalty or a tie to Baker Mayfield. And after this season, the Browns have to make an incredibly important decision. Do you pick up Baker Mayfield's fifth-year option, which, because he plays quarterback and he was the number one pick of the draft, will be north of $25 million? It's a decision that the Chicago Bears are having to make about Mitch Trubisky here in the next few days. They assuredly are not going to do that. But basically, you've got to decide on these guys through 3 years if you want to tie yourself to them long term. And Baker has to play better. Fortunately for Baker, Kevin, it's very simple. Stop turning the ball over, man. That's the genesis of all of his problems. In his career, they're 7-2 when he doesn't turn the ball over. Last year, they were a good team in games where he didn't turn the ball over multiple times, but they were 1-6 in games where he had 2+ turnovers. Take care of the football, Baker, and the talent around you in Odell and Jarvis and Chubb and Njoku and Hooper. And now you got Wirfs, the tackle, and you signed Conklin, the other tackle. You have the roster around you to support you. Kevin, he just has to not turn the ball over at a ridiculous rate, and he'll be fine. But if he does turn the ball over the way he did last year, then, yeah, this is a break year as far as make or break for Baker.
So I think his interceptions will come down, Nick, but I'm also sort of intrigued by this idea that he plays kind of like with his gut and he's looking to make plays, and maybe our interceptions are kind of just part of the bargain you get when you get Baker Mayfield. It's kind of like Favrean. But the third-year thing that you said I think is fascinating, and it reminded me of this NBC book I read. It was called Top of the Rock, and it was all about must-see TV. And it was about running a sitcom or like NYPD Blue. And it's similar to this third-year thing you were talking about. It said, when you have a star, I think they were talking about Cheers with Ted Danson. So it said, the first year, they work for you. The second year, you work together. And then the third year, you work for them. So the showrunner went from Ted Danson working for him to him working for Ted Danson. That's the way it's supposed to go. But now Baker looks around and be like, Kevin Stefanski's like, I don't work for you. You still work for me. And I don't know if the whole thing is going to work because, like you said, there's no loyalty to anyone there to Baker.
It's an interesting point, Wildes. Brian, let me ask you, like Nick said, though, there shouldn't be any excuses for Baker Mayfield now. He's got his new head coach. He's got all his receivers. There's so much talent up and down that roster. Is this a make-or-break year for Baker?
Well, I think it is, and I think Nick is right. When you talk about coaches and when they change and the guys that they bring in, it really just depends on the guys that they drafted. Coaches are tied to the people that they drafted, and obviously Kevin Stefanski, who was in charge of bringing accountability, culture, and character to this organization, did not draft Baker Mayfield. But, you know, more importantly than the quarterback-coach relationship, I think Baker Mayfield this year has to be more accountable to his teammates. You have Jarvis, you have Odell Beckham Jr., you have Chubb, you have all those great players on your offense. He has to be more accountable to them. If you want Odell Beckham Jr. there after this season, you have to make sure that you are a winning quarterback. If you want Jarvis there, you want this type of talent around you continuously throughout your career, you have to be a winning quarterback. He has to be more accountable to his teammates and the guys around him. If he does that, he'll cut down on some of those mistakes that he's made, and he'll turn that team into a winning football franchise.
Nick, how much of last year's 6-10 record do you place on Baker Mayfield? I mean, was it all his fault? We had character issues. There were issues, leadership issues up and down. There were locker room issues. But how much of it was on Baker Mayfield? Is he the guy that can actually turn this franchise around for a couple years?
Well, I think he's the guy that can turn the franchise around for a decade. How on the field, he was the biggest part of the problem. But their biggest problem last year is they had the worst head coach in the NFL. I mean, let's be honest here. Freddie Kitchens had no business being an NFL head coach. He was out of his depth. He had no idea what he was doing.
Don't hold back, Nick.
And it's the sport where a head coach matters the most. And so when you have a quarterback who's playing terribly and turning the ball over, an incompetent head coach, the guy maybe with the most physical talent on your roster, was most known for bonking a quarterback on the head with the item designed to protect the quarterback's head. And the second most talented guy on your roster, his most notable moment was probably wearing a watch or a visor that made the whole nation have a panic attack. It is a perfect storm for suck. And it's kind of a miracle they even won 6 games, that they were alive for the playoffs with a month left in the year. Myles Garrett will be on his best behavior. Odell's jewelry won't be as big of an issue, at least to people with common sense. Kevin Stefanski is better just by showing up. And then it's on Baker. And one of the problems for Baker Wildes is this. He believes he's a better athlete than he is. He gets himself in trouble by trying to escape and run around like he's Kyler Murray, much less Lamar Jackson, and he's not that. He needs to do what a lot of people said, take a page out of Drew Brees' book, get on your tiptoes when you need to within the pocket to look over the line and try to deal from the pocket. I know it sounds old school football, but if you're going to try to be a scrambling, run-around quarterback, you got to be a better athlete than Baker is. I think Baker's done the right things this offseason, said the right things, kept his head down. But ultimately, it's as simple as stop turning the damn ball over, Baker. Wildes, to me, that's the biggest issue now that Freddie Kitchens is gone.
So I'm going to throw it to Brian here. So, Brian, if it's that simple, why doesn't he just do it? Or is there something to the fact that, hey, this is the way I play. This is what got me here. This is how I played when I was a little kid, and I'm going to keep doing it. Can he turn it around, or is it so ingrained in him that he can't change?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is the way that he played. This is how he typically did things at Oklahoma. He did things in high school, early part of his college career, because he normally was one of the best players on the field. However, in the NFL, he's not one of the best athletes. And so now he has to understand, don't force it. Don't lose this game for this football team. Put the ball in Jarvis Landry's hands. Put the ball in Odell Beckham Jr.'s hands. Put the ball in Nick Chubb's hands and Njoku. Put the ball in those guys' hands. You don't have to win every single game with your arm. You don't have to make every single play. Allow these guys to make it. A 3-yard pass to Odell Beckham Jr. is just as good as you scrambling around for 7-8 seconds and then trying to throw a deep ball, because Odell Beckham Jr. can take a 3-yard route and turn it into a 70-yard route. So don't force anything. Allow the game to come to you, and understand the talent around you is much better than what you are right now as the quarterback in the pocket.
And here's the other thing the Browns have going for them, Jenna. And I know you probably don't like to hear this because on your list of your power rankings of teams you root against, the Browns are at the very top. The Chiefs are at the second because you like to see me feel pain, but the Browns are at the top. When you look at the AFC, and by the way, we now live in a world where 7 teams make the playoffs. Kansas City and Baltimore lock them in for the postseason. They are clearly the class of the conference. Who else is there that's a known quantity? Pittsburgh's got a quarterback who's got a repaired elbow that we don't know what he weighs and we don't know what his health is. New England doesn't have a quarterback. The Texans don't have a coach.
What?
The Raiders and Broncos have questions about their quarterback. Like, the Titans just brought Ryan Tannehill back. So when you look, there's going to be 5 other teams other than the Chiefs and Raiders that make the playoffs out of the AFC. So the Browns absolutely can bounce back, win 9 or 10 games, and be a playoff team. It's out in front of them. They're not in the NFC, which is clearly the more loaded conference, but it all starts with Baker not turning the ball over like that, Jenna.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.